infrastructure to vehicle communication, which is indeed comes under the category of machine-to-machine IoT-based communication. Those exchange of information between the road infrastructure and vehicle indeed helps to take an optimal route with the lesser traffic that minimizes the travel time, as well as you could able to see by installing sensors inside the buses, which could able to track the number of persons inside the buses and communicating the information to the user who is waiting to board the bus. And if the bus and before the bus comes to his bus stop, he could able to get a sense of how much is the population inside the bus, whether I could able to get a seat for sitting inside the bus, or whether the bus is already coming with many people. So those kind of sharing of information probably will help you to plan it helps you to plan in a much better way. That's what it has been mentioned, that this wealth of intelligence will be mainly useful for better planning, management, and decision making. Main physical layer techniques which has been proposed in this 5th generation. So as I've already mentioned, 4th generation were mainly concentrating on this MIMO systems, that is multiple input, multiple output, where the antenna numbers of the order of 2, 4, not more than that, actually speaking, where in this 5th generation communication, this MIMO has been enhanced to something called as massive MIMO, where the base station has substantially large number of antennas of the order of 100 to 200, which helps to improve the connectivity, as well as which helps to serve multiple users simultaneously. Because with the introduction of IoT, Internet of Things, which aim towards massive device connectivity, obviously there should be a physical layer technique which should support multiple users simultaneously. One is introduction of more antennas in the base station, and other technique, multiple access technique also needs to support this kind of massive connectivity. And that multiple access technique which is being proposed for 5th generation communication is what is called as non-orthogonal multiple access, where the FDMA, TDMA, CDMA, all those earlier multiple access schemes, they fall under the category of OMA in general. It is orthogonal multiple access, where here their orthogonality will be preserved. Here code division multiple access, it is more of orthogonal codes, and it is orthogonal time slots, where this particular sort of communication, including OFDMA, it is orthogonal frequency division multiple access. Okay, so the orthogonality, the principle of orthogonality preserved in all these multiple access techniques, where it has been relaxed in the 5th generation systems using this non-orthogonal multiple access techniques, where the users are multiplexed in the power domain. They have not multiplexed in either in the frequency or time, because these frequency resources and time resources are very, very sensitive resources who could be able to, if a particular user, imagine a particular user could be able to use the entire frequency slots, frequency band available, as well as the entire time slots, how much data they could be able to pump in. Okay, with that motivation, okay, I could able to give the access towards the entire frequency spectrum as well as the time slot to a particular user. Then how I could able to multiplex them? Yes, I could able to multiplex them by allocating different power levels. Okay, that's how then the point of interference will be coming inside, that they have been taken care in the decoders using successive interference cancellation technique. Okay, so this indeed was again a revolutionary technology which indeed catered the needs of massive data, massive device connectivity, as well as another a technique which is being proposed is FBMC, filter bank multi-carrier, which is the technique which nullifies or which counteract the drawbacks of OFDM. Basically, OFDM systems, basically the quality of the filters, because it will be of more of orthogonal carriers. So you need filters to especially cut off those frequencies to preserve this orthogonality. However, this quality of these filters are not good enough, and which leads to more of a spectral leakage in OFDM system, where that has been taken care of in this filter bank multi-carrier, where they use high quality sharp filters, and the spectral leakage which has been faced in OFDM was significantly less because of this introduction of FBMC technique. And then another technique is full duplay radio technology, where simultaneous transmission and reception using same frequency band at the same time has been proposed, and that improves the spectral efficiency. Basically, there are two ways of this communication. One is half duplet based and full duplet based, especially in your 2G and 4G systems. You would see that for uplink and downlink, especially for uplink and downlink, will be using two different frequency slots. Means a particular antenna will not be receiving as well as transmitting simultaneously. If it is doing, then it would use two different slots. However, that is not simultaneous. Or if it is using, then it will be two different frequency slots. It will not happen in the same frequency band. So transmission and reception, especially at the base station, if it is a frequency division duplet, then it will happen in two different frequency slots to avoid the interference. Okay, so imagine a scenario where this transmission and reception at the base station is happening in the same frequency slots. Okay, which you can able to conserve this frequency resources, which indeed improves your spectral efficiency, and that is what is the ultimate motivation behind the full duplet radio technology, where simultaneous transmission and reception using frequency band at the same time was possible using this. However, you have to pay, there will be a trade-off. Obviously, there will be an interference because of this, which will be taken care, which should be taken care in the hardware level to nullify this interference to again, it is also called in this domain, it is also a self-interference, loop interference they would call it as. Obviously, the hardware design should be in such a way that it should nullify this loop interference or self-interference to a greater extent. Then another, this is spatial modulation is more or less connected with this massive MIMO, and with the introduction of hundreds of antennas, that many number of RF chains and power amplifiers will be required. RF chains will be the one which will be towards the end of the RF chain, your antennas will be connected basically. Okay, so with the increase in the number of antennas, obviously the number of RF chains also will be increasing. So your requirement of large number of these RF chains, okay, is a very big issue in case of your massive MIMO. Okay, and this has been solved by using this technique, which is called as a spatial modulation, which uses very few transmit RF chains than the number of antennas. Till third generation or fourth generation, the number of transmit RF chains is equal to the number of antennas. But as 5G is speaking about massive MIMO, with the increase in the orders of with the increase in the with the requirement of large number of antennas. Okay, instead of keeping the RF chains also along the same number, okay, that has been relaxed with the help of this spatial modulation. Especially in case of spatial modulation, there will be one RF chain is enough, and it switches between the multiple antennas through some rule, which I will be speaking towards the end of the lecture, as well as this generalized spatial modulation, where they use not one RF chain, at least a few transmit RF chains will be used to transmit the information over, to communicate the information over these hundreds of antennas. So basically, only very few RF chains will be there that should able to switch, or that should able to link it to the number of antennas. That we will see how efficiently we could able to do it. So mainly the requirement of large number of RF chains, okay, that has been relaxed by using this, or that can be solved, which is a big issue, and that has been solved by using this spatial modulation, where the number of RF chains requirements will be lesser than the number of antennas. Okay, these are all overview about this fifth generation physical layer techniques, as well as they have missed out one point about millimeter wave communication, where the enhancement in the spectral bandwidth is possible. Basically, 5G might be introduced in two frequency spectrums. Obviously, the first release might be similar to the frequency spectrum which has been used for fourth generation. So that is what is sub 6 gigahertz. So 2.4 gigahertz band, they would be using that. That is what is sub 6 gigahertz. Additionally, some other band also might be coming, which will be less than the 6 gigahertz band. Probably in those sub 6 gigahertz, there you may not see big improvement in the bandwidth. However, another version of this 5G will be definitely introduced in millimeter wave frequency range, which is in between not 6 to 300 gigahertz. It is more of around the order of 30 gigahertz region. Okay, this millimeter wave, the frequency, the spectrum will be in that 30 gigahertz frequency range. to 300 gigahertz, any frequency spectrum they would be using, except a few frequencies